the
pleasure.
shirt. I love the sporting the Spine Bookshop.
Yeah, shout out to the Spine. Thank you for the shirt. This was when they did that event. They gave all the staff members a shirt, and I'm like, you know what? It's very soft. It's a good shirt.
Yeah.
I'm like,
No, I
all
love
right,
that.
cool. Shout out to the Spine.
Yeah. And she's great. She's really getting around. A lot of people know her.
She's very active. Like, I don't know, just very social, like networking animal. Like,
Hmm.
a lot of community ties and stuff. I mean, just really interesting. Things are always on the move. Dynamic. I don't know. She's definitely someone to know as an author, but also
Yeah.
just an interesting friend. I mean, big personality. She's a lot of fun. So shout
Yeah.
out to Lynn. Yeah.
Yeah. She had a live the other day. I think she was on for like 6 hours. She just left it going and talked to anyone that hopped in. I hopped in a few times, was like, hello, I'm back.
I believe it. Like she'll be, working at the shop and she'll just have, a live going and she's like just going about her business
Hmm.
and just kind of chatting to the camera and interviewing authors and
Yeah.
um, just always in motion. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, she's great.
Yeah.
But this one is about you. So, have you been interviewed before? I've seen a few videos pop up that might have related to you.
I have a couple times.
Okay.
It's kind of few and far between. So like I had a couple like a year, 2 years ago, and then lately I've had a couple more. So I don't
Okay.
know, but mostly I'm doing the interviewing. So this is a little bit of a rare sort of thing, yeah.
Right. Right. Well, and it's kind of full circle because you were the first podcast I was on too.
Yeah, there we go. Coming back around. Yeah,
Yeah.
you did great. I didn't realize that was your first one.
Yes. Yeah, I remember
Wow.
like I think it was like a minute or two before you started recording. I was just sitting there smiling. You're like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "No."
Like,
But
no,
it
I'm
was
not
fine.
okay.
It got good.
God, yeah, the first one I ever did, I was so nervous, and I had this impression. So the guy, I met him through one of the award contests,
Mm.
and he's like a radio personality, has like a show, um, and it felt like he did such a good job with his marketing. I call it pufferfish marketing, which is like appearing larger than you really are. So I had this sense that like this guy was like 10 feet tall, and that wasn't really the case. But I was kind of nervous. But it felt like he had this big show, and I'm this like nobody, brand new author, and like, and I was very nervous. And then, like years later, it's got like 20 views or something. I was like, you know what? I don't. What was I so nervous about? Like, it's just people talking. Like,
Yeah.
no, just people talking. So
No, that's exactly how it felt. Because I think
yeah,
it's the confidence. Like you came on to your podcast and you're like, okay, this is how it's gonna go. And I was just like, okay, we'll see what happens. But yeah, it's just people talking. That's what I tell people before they get on my podcast too. I'm like, we're just having a conversation.
yeah. And that's actually part of why I like don't go in with a plan too. So like this guy had more of like he interviews a lot of people and he's got like a general script that he works.
Hmm.
Um, so it's like I don't know, but if you don't have a script at all, I feel like it makes I don't know, it can make it more casual or more just, conversational and a little more authentic and not like a staged production or something.
Yeah.
Uh, but then if you have no structure, I don't know, like the 40 minutes flies by and you didn't even talk about any of
Right.
the
Well, and for me, like
yeah.
I sent you and I send other people questions before the podcast. That's mostly just if we sit here staring at each other and both of us are blanking. And I'm like, okay, I do have questions. But yeah, this could go completely different than the questions I have. But I do want to talk about your books. So, how many
Yes.
books do you have published right now?
Ooh. Okay, so it looks like a lot more than it is.
Okay.
So really, I have three full-size books. So the first one is a short story collection that has 12 different stories, and then several of those were large enough that I published them individually. Like they had standalone merit. So like the Nobody Who Fought a Dragon, the Return Flight. You and I are collaborating on one right now, which yeah, from 13 Acorns. Oh,
It's
cool. So you got
the only physical copy I have. Everything else I have digital. So I was like, I'm gonna bring this.
I'll bring that out. Yeah, no, I appreciate that. You're more prepared than I am. So yeah, a couple stories from that book I published individually, and then I've got a book called The Flower from the Garbage, and inside of that book there's Truth and Evil, which is a novelette that you've read, and then Life in a Jar, which is my Greek mythology one that I'm working on right now. So those both came from The Flower from the Garbage, but it was almost like I wasn't totally ready to write those. It's like I published The Flower from the Garbage and then came back and I was like, you know what? There's something more in those two novelettes or novellas that are inside this larger, giant literary fiction, like
Yeah.
dictionary sized book.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So it's really three books, and then there's a bunch of novelettes and novellas that kind of came out of all those.
Yeah. So I
Yeah.
guess that's because they are kind of small short stories inside of a larger book. What made you want to do the short stories versus doing a full like novel base?
Okay, so the first book I ever wrote, it was The Flower from the Garbage, and I did a draft that came out at like 40,000 words, and I had no idea how to write. Like I was an unlikely candidate to ever be a writer. And I like didn't know what I was doing. So I was like, you know what, I'm gonna try to write a novel. And it just came out like nonsense. It was a big nothing burger, and I was like, okay, I don't actually know how to write. Like I have I have a good mind, I have good ideas, I have perspective, but I don't understand the art of writing. And I was like, you know what? Instead of like trying to climb Mount Everest, let's start with like a good size hill. So I was like, we're gonna write some short stories here and just really stick to the script. And that's worked better for me. Like every time I set out to write a full-size novel, I have too much to say and too many ideas. And it's like you're trying to do too many things at once and you miss the mark because there's so many branches, right?
Hmm.
But the short story is like, okay, you can have one essential message and you get in, you get out, you're conscious of like every word, the timing, the speed of things, where you should take a minute to describe something, where you should flow through it, the pace. And I've really just connected with the short stories, novelettes, novellas is, I can make one big point, get the job done, and keep going. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I will say, so I think it was The False Train Hound that was the first one. It was either that or Truth and Evil, that the first one that you sent to me via Audible, which that was my first Audible book I've ever listened to,
Cool.
and my first short story that I've ever read or well listened to. And it just
Yeah.
blew my mind how much you had in such a small amount, like some less words, less pages, but you still had a full story. You had the plot, you had the characters, you had the lesson. And then every single book after that has been like that. And now I'm able to reach out to other short stories and just be just as impressed with it. Like I feel like that's its own art is being able to condense a very good story and still tell it well.
No, there's a thing, the book that really turned me on to that is The Old Man and the Sea by Ernest Hemingway. And that's one like probably once a year I reread that book. And I always find something new. It's like it catches you wherever you are in your life and different things jump out at you. But like that book astonished me because it is so simple. There's nothing fancy. There isn't a single word in that book I had to look up in a dictionary to say, what does that mean? And yet it's enormous. It's a tiny little book with short sentences, simple words, and yet as profound and deep as anything you've ever read. And I was like, you know what? I mean, just the possibilities, right? I mean, you can read something like Crime and Punishment. It's enormous and it's got so much to say. But there are these giant stories in like this tiny little packaging. And I was like, I would love to do something like that. But yeah, the False Tree Hunt. I remember when you read that one, you made a video about it, and you're like, "Oh, thank you for sharing this true story." And I was like, "Oh shit!" Like it wasn't like it didn't actually happen to me, but that was a sign to me that it was actually a well executed book. That like it
Mm.
felt like my real personal experience, like almost like a memoir or reflection on some season I had. I was like, I think I hit the mark with this one. If
Yeah.
people think that that's my real life,
No, it totally sounded like you wrote from your real perspective of like this is what happened. And I was like, wow, that was pretty emotional and raw and thank you for sharing that.
Thank you for sharing that vulnerability. Yeah, that
Yeah.
honesty.
So it's like
I,
a small book, a big impact kind of thing, which really goes into you. I think you were the first person that I heard talk about the acorns and how there's a big oak tree inside every acorn. Is that kind of what you had in mind for these 13 acorns? Like I had that connection after you said that.
yeah, so it was interesting how the book title came about. So I was doing like okay, while I was writing that book, I was learning about meditation and like self-hypnosis and these kind of things. And I did this meditation that was like it's interesting. It was a self-hypnosis and they take you through this thing like you're in a place, you see a big tree, it's got a door, and you're visualizing yourself going down like a winding staircase, and then wherever you emerge is like supposed to be your unconscious mind. And you kind of walk out into this forest and then you're like, okay, something should appear to you here. And maybe it's some dead relative or some guide. Like there's gonna be something that comes to you that's like gonna give you what you need right now. And I was like waiting, waiting, waiting. I'm sitting there in this meditation hypnosis thing, and I'm like staring at an acorn. And then, the guy's like, "Oh, hey, time to come out." And I was like, "Well, what the hell?" Like nothing came, like no eagle or like, no
Right.
Viking warrior came to tell me about my ancestry. But it occurred to me, okay, so later on, like a few days later, I was talking to a friend and I was telling her about this, and she like just stopped in her tracks and walked over to her purse and pulled out an acorn. She's like, I found this when I was walking down the street today, and I have no idea why I picked it up. And it was just like, you know what? And then it kind of just got me thinking this whole thing where, inside of the little acorn is the blueprint of a giant tree.
Hmm.
And something so small can have something so enormous, or like plant the seed for. And I was like, an idea is like that, right? It can seem like this tiny little thing, but it can emerge, or it can grow into something that lasts 400 years, just yeah. And I was like, okay, there is something beautiful and profound in that. And short stories, maybe they're like that. I mean, that's kind of what Hemingway did for me. Like The Old Man in the Sea is a little acorn, but I
Yeah.
mean, look at this tree that's come from it. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Well, that's what I was gonna say is like you're planting these and little acorns everywhere with these short stories, and like you said, it could inspire people even well past when we're here. Um,
Right.
and yeah, it's kind of like because we've also talked in the community about everyone's been talking about like you plant the seed and you have to wait for it to grow kind of thing.
Mm,
So there is that time of like you planted your story, now you have to like let it do its thing, kind of let it set its roots, let it sprout and then water it and you keep it going and then it'll grow into something, which is
yeah.
so hard for a lot of authors to do, myself included. But
Yeah. We're so like passion driven that things we want them to be immediate, right? Like you release a book and you want like it to just have this momentum. There's a bunch of people reading it and they're recommending it, and it's just like this dominoes. And that's not really how it works. I mean, it is a slow, yeah. You plant a lot of roots before you see anything sprouting out of the ground, you know?
yeah, yeah, you just it's
Yeah.
kind of like I don't know, I guess when because real parents, when you have a kid, you want to show everyone pictures of your kid, and they're like they're sitting right there. I'm like, I know, but this picture's cute. So you kind of just want to like brag to everybody about your book, like I
Right.
made this, look what I made, and they're like, yeah, but I've got a long TBR list, and you're like, can you add it to
Right.
it?
That is the thing. And honestly, okay, that was a very hard thing for me right when I got started is I think only my mom has read all of my stuff. Like, I don't think any of my other relatives, brother, like nobody has read even a single story. And it's like, you work so hard on it. You think it's like so cool, right? And you expect the people very close to you to like have your back and be like, oh my God, that's so cool. I want to like participate in this and check out what you made and give you feedback and help you and support it. And it's like, no, it's not like that at all.
Yeah.
And that's something you gotta let go. Like as an author, you gotta develop tough skin pretty fast in this game, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's perfect advice. I also ran into that with family and friends that you run into that where like, hey guys, look, I made this, and then nothing happens.
Yeah.
But I've also seen other authors on TikTok say the exact same thing. So it's not like because I felt very alone in that. But it's something that happens. Like you said, we have to have that tough skin.
Yeah. And I don't know. I don't. Have you ever read the Four Agreements?
I'm not sure who's it by.
Uh, Paulo Coelho? I
Okay,
think
probably
that's
not.
how you say it. It's
Sounds
four
familiar.
things to live by. Like the first one is like be impeccable with your word, which is not like keep your promises. It's more like be careful with every word that comes out of your mouth because
Mm,
every word has a frequency. And when people talk about this whole spelling is spelling because you're casting spells, and his whole thing about being impeccable with your word is like be very, very conscious with everything that comes out of your mouth because life is a boomerang. But one of these things is to never take anything personally.
mhm,
Like everything people say to you and you say to them is a reflection on your inner world and theirs, right?
right.
So when people don't read your book, I mean, there's a lot of reasons. There's like, well, I don't read, I have a long TBR,
Mhm,
or like, I know you, I've grown up with you my whole life. I know you're not smarter than me, better than me. You're doing something you think is really cool, and it makes me feel a certain way about what I'm doing or not doing, success I'm having or not having. Um, and even for some of my aunt was very honest with me that like I don't know, I'm kind of nervous to read your books because I feel like I'll know you way too well, and I'm like, yeah, you will. Maybe
right. Yes.
it's good. We keep this, so. But that's like one of these things. If you take it personally, it's not good for anyone, and it's not even an accurate reflection of,
Right.
everyone has their reasons for what they do or don't do, and there's nothing to be, yeah.
Oh,
Like the less you can take things personally, the better.
yeah, and I had a huge aha moment in my life when I think it was the word Sonder, which we've talked about, but mostly
Mm,
perspective. just realizing and taking like stepping back and realizing that, yeah, like you said, that other people either don't like to read or they're just super busy or they'd rather unwind with TV at the end of the day than open a book because it feels more like work to them. I mean, there's all kinds of different reasons. And so it's not that
Right.
they don't want to read it because they don't like you, but I mean, there might be that too. But they they have their
Oh,
reasons and it happens and it's something is that tough skin we have to learn about.
no, you're absolutely right. And I feel awful because some of my, biggest readers are like other authors. And I feel awful that like I just generally don't read as much as I should. Like my day job, I'm reading all day. And
Right.
then I'm trying to write my own books. And then, so it's like I don't find myself sitting down with a book very often anymore. Like if I have an hour, I'm like, God, I should really be pushing my dream forward. But it's one of those things that was like, hopefully, no authors that I know take that personally because, like, me not reading a book is not a reflection on anyone else's work or the quality of their work or if I think it's an interesting premise. It's totally a reflection on just like my schedule and where I'm at, kind of thing. And
Yeah.
but it's something we all got to work through,
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's only so many minutes in a day, and we have like family and jobs, and we want to do our own books too. And so, like, I'm trying to even find that balance between the reading, because I love reading, and writing my
Right.
own stuff, because I'm starting to feel like I'm pulling away from my writings, even though I want to. So, yeah, you just gotta, as an author, you just gotta find that balance and find the times that you, if you're feeling inspired, sit down and write.
Right. Let's talk about manifestation really quick.
All right.
Okay. So I have always had a very bad relationship with time.
Hmm.
Like I'm a dude where like, okay, everything needed to happen yesterday and today is too short. There's not enough time and like I pack my day like a can of sardines.
Yep.
But I also realize that like if I think I'm going to be late somewhere, I'm always late. And if I tell myself I'm going to be on time, I get there right on time. And I also acknowledge that like I've never seen anyone who became homeless because they were reading a book when they should have been out doing Uber Eats, like working a second or third job. So like I know that I'm wrong and like in my head, I know that I'm incorrect with how this all works. That like, oh, there is time to read and like people do it every day and they're not like their life isn't falling apart because they sat down with a book when they should have been doing whatever else. So um that's like partly my own work of just like working on that relationship with time and time in a day, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, and it's tricky with a book, so it's kind of like binging a show. Like if I have a book that I'm really obsessed with, I feel kind of guilty because as soon as I have to put it down because my kids are needing me or my husband needs me to do something, and I put the book down,
Hmm.
and then all I'm thinking about is what's happening next in the book, I have to almost kind of like pull that away and so like
Hmm.
kind of disassociate from the book to be with my family again. And so yeah, it's that is a
Right.
mental thing too.
No, that's a really and another thing. Admittedly, my wife, if she hears this, she'll be like, "Yeah, that's right." Like sometimes I'm watching my son, and he's got his toys, he's happy, and I'm like working on editing a TikTok video, and like there is a guilt that's like I really should be present
Hmm.
here with my kid, with my wife in this moment, but I'm like trying to push a dream forward, and it's an interesting. Well, I will say, like, if you're caught up in a book and you're like, okay, I put it down, but I didn't really put it down. Like, I physically put the book down, but like, God, I'm still like mulling it over.
Hmm.
That is a sign that it's a very good book,
Yeah.
but it is tough. I mean, I feel like we are infinitely powerful in the present moment, and like the only reason we're kind of weak is like we're looking ahead at like, oh my God, what does next month hold, or like 5 years from now, how are we going to get from here to there? Like, God, I screwed this up a month ago. You're like if we can just be exactly where we are, I feel like anything is possible. And I think Eckhart Tolle talks about that as like, right now is infinite and razor thin at the same time, but all possibilities exist right here in this moment. And like the future you're building, eventually it'll still be right now, like just like you're planning a vacation and then suddenly you're on the vacation and you're like, oh, everything I've been planning, now it's right here, right now. And you
Hmm.
kind of miss it because you're always so used to like looking ahead. And it's like,
Yes. And then you're
I
planning
got,
the
I,
next day. Yep.
oh God, I got to personally work on retraining my brain to just be like, I am right here, right now.
Yeah. So I will
Yeah.
say I also do the same thing where because you and I both have a lot of hats. I mean, we have spouses, we have children, we have jobs, we have this marketing and
Mhm.
podcasting. And so we have a lot of things to do in a day. And so in my mind, how I try to explain it to my husband was have you played Diner Dash or Overcooked or anything like that? So when you have the customers come in, they have orders and the orders pop up at the top and then like this guy's been waiting long enough so his order starts turning yellow and then red and he gets really mad and then he'll leave because you didn't give him his food in time. And so I have that
Right.
in my head like, okay, I haven't spent a lot of time with my kids today and so I need to
Hmm.
everything else needs to go and I need to focus on them. So it's kind of like buckets and energy. Maybe that's it.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just where you're putting your energy. Like you feel like you've put enough energy towards yourself, as in like the writing and whatnot, or if you need to put more energy towards your kids. I mean, you kind of find that balance inside to know in your heart, like maybe I should direct tomorrow to just being with my kid and my wife, or tomorrow I need to really just work on writing because I've been falling back on that.
No, you are absolutely correct. I have this metaphor. It's like a visual. I don't know if it came from a dream or something, but it was like being an adult is like you're in a room and the ceiling is made of goo, and you run over here and push up the ceiling. But if you spend too long there, it starts drooping somewhere else, and
Mm-hmm.
you got to go run and push it up. And being a really high functioning adult with dreams feels all the time like you're falling short and falling behind. Like there's always a little guilt because you could spend a little more time with your child and your spouse. There's always a little more time you could have put into your dream. There's always like, God, I could have been a little more focused here. Like there's 5 dishes in the sink. I really should deal with that. Like the grass is getting a little long. And you're like running around constantly chasing this thing. And it feels like you're almost on the verge of falling apart, but you're actually thriving. But it doesn't feel that way because like this goo is relentless. Um, that's kind of what it's like when you have a lot going on and a dream all at the same damn time.
Yes, yeah. Well, and
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, it's kind of tough too because right now we're younger. And so I try to envision that like I'm young now and I'm tired. Like I could not imagine trying to do this in the next 10 years because I'm going to want to enjoy as my kids get older and are able to like communicate back to me. But
Right,
I'd love
right.
to be able to enjoy that time and like take them out and take them places that they can enjoy and have fun. But so I'm thinking in my head, maybe this is just me trying to like make up for it. But I'm like, right now I have the time to market so that hopefully later I have more time with them. But I also don't
Yeah.
want to get like 20 years from now and realize I missed out on a bunch of time. So it's tricky.
It is tricky. I do agree with like planting the seeds now because that's what we're doing as authors is like trying to plant our acorns, right? Like the book is out there, and then you've got your social medias and stuff. You're working, you're like developing an audience, friendships, connections, networking, opportunities. Like you're planting a lot of seeds, and the hope is that in 10 years, the books will be selling, whether you're at the soccer game with your kids. Like you don't have to be on TikTok every day talking about your books because like the books are talking about themselves. Like they have a life of their own. They're finding readers and readers are finding the books without you steering the ship every second, right?
Yeah.
So I'm in a similar position. I think you're right. I hope you're right. We're gonna find out.
Well, I will say, so I now someone's going to probably come in the comments and say I'm completely wrong, but when I looked, ACOTAR, A Court of Thorn and Roses,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that how that just like everyone knows about it. It exploded recently. That book had
Right.
been out for about 10 years before it exploded. I believe.
No kidding.
I believe. I'm pretty sure I looked it up and it was like 2009, 2019
Right.
maybe when it exploded. I something about those time period, but it had been out for a long time and then once everyone read through her whole that series, they're like, "Okay, we want something more." And then they jumped into her other series who had also been out for another 5 years. I'm
Right.
butchering the numbers, but yeah, it's interesting to look at that and say that went so huge, but it didn't go huge right away. Like it needed to find its
Right.
little launching pad.
I need to like interview her, someone like her, because there's a couple things. I mean, the first thing is like you never know when the world is going to be ready to receive a piece of art. And we think in these short terms, but this really is a long term kind of game. But I do wonder, like, okay, what was that shift, right? Like, if the book has been out there, it's been available, but like, there was either, and I don't know, maybe there was one critical person who read it who their opinion holds a lot of weight. And if they talk about it, a bunch of people are going to check it out. Or like something happened, right? Like there was some shift that suddenly the visibility of this book, the interest of this book,
Hmm.
um, and I don't know. And just a quick note for any authors watching, there's a book called Good to Great, and the whole premise is that things that are good are the enemy of things that are great because you get complacent. We're making these TikTok videos, and it's so much better than Instagram, Facebook, all this stuff. But you can get complacent and stop exploring, right? Like
Mhm.
there's a whole world of like bloggers who are just talking about books and they have thousands of people. Like there's email marketing services. There's so many different routes. And I am guilty of this personally. You stop exploring them because you have something that's kind of working.
Mhm.
Uh,
Yeah.
but bring that creativity to your marketing, right? Keep exploring.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
and for me, I'm a little, I don't know if it's overwhelmed. So Instagram is its own beast and it's so frustrating. That's actually where we started, but it was going
Right.
absolutely nowhere and it was just kind of devastating and I didn't want to put my energy into it anymore. And then I was
Right.
like, all right, I think I'm just going to try TikTok and see what happens. Well, did pretty well. So
Yeah.
so I
Yeah.
pulled from Facebook and Instagram, but I do want to try to like get back in there. I know you guys are all posting over there and so I have friends and content over there too.
Mhm.
Um, and then Substack's rising in the ranks here, and I'm like, I'm so intimidated to add another, but it could be helpful. And like once you kind of get into the feel of it, then it doesn't feel as scary. But for like a new author, I'm sure looking at something like TikTok, or I've had people actually say they were scared to hop onto Book Talk because it was a whole thing. I'm like, it's really not. It's actually kind of
No,
great.
no, it is the best, honestly. And I can't say that this method is the best, but like what I do just for the sake of time is, I'll record a video, I'll produce the whole thing in TikTok because they have the best editing features. And then I just download it and I'll just take the same thing and I'll throw it on Instagram, I'll throw it on Clapper, X/Twitter, I'll put it on YouTube Shorts. And it's like, TikTok is probably half of all my book momentum and traction. And then all these other social medias combined are the other half. But you know what I mean? It doesn't really cost you anything extra to just take the same video and throw it because
Mhm.
I'm learning that they're all different ecosystems. Like there is overlap, especially like TikTok and Instagram. But like the people that are following me on YouTube are not the people necessarily following me on TikTok. So it's like you're getting the same content in front of a bunch of different people. And I think we have this fear of being annoying that's like, God, I keep, if you post a video 4 days in a row of the same book, you're like, God, that's got to be really annoying for the people who follow me. I was like, so what? This is your dream. Like, take your
Mhm.
video, put it out there, make it visible, talk about your book as much as you want. Like, do not worry about how other people perceive that. They can stop following you if they want to, they can stop engaging, whatever. But like, no one's going to fight for this dream if you don't fight for this dream. So, like,
Right.
work the tools you have at your disposal. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Well, and even for the people that aren't really your friends, but they're following you here and there, if they see a video
Yeah.
of yours and they're like, "Oh yeah, I'd be interested in that," and they heart it and then completely forget about it because I've been guilty of that. And then they see it pop up later
Right.
again and they're like, "Oh yeah," so it's a reminder for them, and then they want to put that in their cart and check it out or put it in their TBR or whatever.
Right. And I've heard something in marketing that like people need to see a product 7 times on average
Mm.
before they'll buy it. And you think about like how much McDonald's advertises. It's like as if anyone in the world doesn't know McDonald's. But like people need reminders. Like we're busy. You can see a book and you're like, oh, that looks good. And then you watch a different video and watching old crocodile hunter stuff. And I'm like, God, and it's like, how big do saltwater crocodiles get? And like, God, and then you get into a whole documentary and then you're like, completely forget about this book and you see it a second time and you're like, oh yeah, wait, I was going to do that. And then,
Right.
you know what I mean? Like the repetition thing is essential because it's just, we're inundated with information more than any other generation that's ever existed.
Right. Well, and it could be too, like McDonald's has it where it's at a specific time, so around lunchtime, dinner time kind of thing, that it'll pop up. And so
Hmm.
then you're like, oh, okay, I'm hungry. That sounds good. Let's go get it. So if you do it
Yeah.
enough that yours might pop up right at the time that they get done with the book and they're like, okay, what's going to be next? That looks pretty good. I'll go check that out.
Right. Catch them right at the right moment. Just really
Right.
quick, I saw a thing. Taco Bell put out a tweet that was like, just a PSA, we're open when you're sober too. I just thought that was like really funny.
I'm
Like,
so guilty of
listen,
that.
it's not just me. Like we're here even when. Um, but yeah, I mean, people need the repetition. It's just the way it is. So
hmm Yeah. Well, we did have the 10-minute alert, so I do want to say before I mean, because we can go back into talking about everything, but
yeah,
I do want to do two things. I want to do your plugs right now before we get kicked out later. And then if you wanted to do the artworks, even though I totally gave it to you late, that's on me. The three words I sent you, I didn't know if you wanted to try to do anything with those.
ooh, okay. I'm sorry. What were the
No, you're
three?
good. You're good.
I'm
Through the meadow.
through the meadow. Okay, so uh, it reminds me of my grandfather. There's a song called Guantanamera. It's a song that's in Spanish. It's a beautiful song, but he would always sing it like the song goes like Guantanamera, and he would sing it as Guantanamera. And my mom thought that was the funniest thing. But it reminds me of weird family stories I got. But that's about all I got. I don't know a lot about Meadows. I just know
Oh,
that my grandpa thought that was hilarious to put the wrong English words into a Spanish song and ruin it for the whole family. And that was just fun. Yeah.
no, that's perfect. I love that. See, the segment just everything that people do with the three words, it because it's all different, it's all unique, and so I love what it brings to the creative mind.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'll tell you a weird family story, just really quick, maybe very fast here. So my mom was telling me a thing. It was like, oh, when I was a kid, my dad would hide money in the shower skeleton, and I was like, Mom, let me stop you a second. Like, what the hell is a shower skeleton? She's like, well, it was like a Halloween decoration, and we put it in the shower, and then we kind of left it there, and then eventually someone put a wig on it, and sometimes my grandpa would like he'd drink a little too much, and he'd hide some money in the shower skeleton, and like in that moment she's telling me the story, she realized like, oh, other families didn't do that. So anyway, we all come from weird families, and there's some point, sometimes in your 30s, 40s, 50s, that you realize that your family is very strange, and that's a lot of fun. That's a lot of fun to figure
Yeah.
out.
Well, actually, when I got to like 20 and I realized my mom and dad were just other humans, and I was like, huh, that perspective is very interesting. Like you're not just like these superheroes, like you are a human. You have your flaws and you're just trying to raise a human. And I'm not
Right.
perfect, so that's wasn't easy for them.
Yeah, I'm getting used to this whole idea that my parents are aging. You know what I mean? Like at some point, I mean, they're going to be like old and senile, but
Yeah.
yeah, you have this vision in your mind because you've seen your parents navigate so many things. Like as a kid, you assume they know what they're doing. You assume they have all the answers and that someone taught them how to. But then you become a parent, and you're like, oh wait, they were making it up every
Yeah,
single day,
I would say
just
yeah.
like I'm making it up every single day. And you're like, oh, that's a scary prospect. Yeah.
Yeah, you become a parent, you're like, ah, I see. Okay, so how did you survive this? So really quick, the shower skeleton, was that in the shower? Like they would shower with the skeleton in there, or how does that
It
work?
was like, I'm not totally sure. She called it the shower skeleton. And then, like, every time I bring it up, she laughs so hard I can't get a clear answer. But it was like a Halloween decoration. And instead of putting it away, they hung it like maybe on like the towel rack or a hook in the
Oh, okay, okay.
bathroom. And someone put a wig on it, which I don't know where they got the wig. But then, like, my grandpa would like, he'd have a couple drinks and he would just like, oh, I gotta hide this money. And most people like maybe would hide money in a book or under the mattress. He would
Yeah.
hide it in a wig, and then my mom would find it as a little kid and like,
That was my second question was how do you hide money in a skeleton? Like that is the hardest. Did you wrap it around the ribs? Like
right. But I mean, honestly, the funniest part is she was telling me this story with a straight face, as if like this is all perfectly normal behavior that everyone can understand without an explanation.
Yep.
Yeah.
But it's great memories to pass along.
Oh God, I was raised by goofballs. I come from a generation of goofballs and really fun-loving, hilarious people, but very peculiar habits.
Yeah. Oh, really quick too. The plugs. So where are you most active? I mean, you mentioned a few of them. I don't have all that down below, but is there certain ones that you're most active on?
So TikTok is the most reliable. Like there's probably a video every single day on TikTok. There's videos on TikTok that I'm not necessarily sending elsewhere. And then I seem to be on there the most. So like if you try to get in touch with me, you'll hear back quicker on TikTok than anywhere else. Like I may eventually see it on YouTube or whatever. So TikTok is the best place if you want to connect with me. And new authors starting out, always happy to help out if you have any questions, pick my brain. So take this journey together here.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and do you want to talk really quick about your Greek mythology since that is very now?
Ooh, yes. Okay, so I put out a video like a month and a half ago that was like, I need ARC readers. This book is coming out in like a week here. Because I had already written the whole thing, and it was like maybe 12,000 words. And then I'm looking at it, and then all these ideas came in. It's been a month and a half, and I do not have this thing finished. I think I'm at like 60,000 words now or something. Like it came out, it was supposed to be a little novelette, and I basically rewrote the whole thing, and now it's a damn near full-size novel.
Yeah.
Um, and I had to lose my mind to write this story. Like I've been insane. I'm like just coming out of it. Like I'm kind of like the manic and the passion and the creativity and the insanity and the Van Gogh, like,
Mhm.
cutting the ear off and going nuts. I'm starting to ease out of that. I'm a little less intense today than like 2 weeks ago. But I think this might be my best work ever, but it's pushing all the boundaries. I mean, it's going to be a difficult story. Like I'm working on it's kind of like a unified story of so much world history. And I don't know, I'm so close to being done. I'll tell you a little bit. So it's almost like, the story is almost about the Greek gods dying to make room for like Christianity and then like them fighting for their survival or wrestling with their own mortality after Prometheus introduces fire to humanity, which is like a symbol for the Holy Spirit or something that like
Mm.
I'm giving these people this inner thing that's making them less reliant on the gods. And the gods are like, oh shit, we just became mortal. And I mean, and there's like a unified story in this with like Adam and Eve and the Garden of Eden and the Great Flood and Socrates, Aristotle, Plato, the building of the Parthenon on top of the Acropolis, the foundation of Rome, Gnostic Christian texts coming back into the world recently. Like it's a wild, and it's the kind of thing, if I get it wrong, it's going to sound like some schizophrenic guy. But if I get it right, it's going to be this incredible web of just like something that could only be written today with the hindsight of, the world history we can look back on and how these things are related. Like I'll give you a quick example. So Alexander the Great was mentored by Aristotle, who was mentored by Plato, who was mentored by Socrates. But Alexander the Great finally invaded Persia, took down the empire, but then his empire fell apart. But he connected Greece with Egypt and Israel. So then when Jesus came, Israel and Greece were trading and they were, you know what I mean? So then you think of St. Paul going into Greece, and that's really how Christianity took off because it was like not necessarily being well received in the region, but it was like, like First Corinthians, right? Like the Corinthians were Greeks. And it was like Alexander the Great, 300 years before that, opened the door that, like, hey, these two countries are now talking, communicating. And it was like, God, if you look back at history, it was like the reason anything happened is because so many things happened a certain way.
Mhm.
And no one's ever written a story kind of unifying, like creating a bridge between all these things. And I was like, God, I can see it, but trying to write it has been like, whoo,
Yeah.
like, yeah.
Well, going manic, that means this is gonna be really good. That's all it means. That means that you're putting a lot of energy and focus into that, and it's gonna be really, really good.
Yeah, I think you'll very much enjoy it. I think a lot of people will be like, I don't know what the hell I just read, but I think you'll be like, this is really, really cool.
It'd be like
So as long as
Inception.
you as long as you enjoy it, I'm like, okay, I actually did the thing. Like there's yeah, someone I respect understood it the way that I meant it to be
Yeah, I'm
understood.
excited. I'm so excited
Yeah.
to read it. We do have less than a minute, so it might just randomly pop us out of here. But I am very excited to read it. So hopefully you do get a lot of ARC signups when it does come out, and let me know, and I can help blast that around too.
Oh, I appreciate it. Thank you, Lynn.
Yeah, of course.